Let's get right to it with our first issue, which has to do with kids using smartphones in order to cheat on tests in school. Maybe you've heard about this at various school districts around the country. A real problem with standardized testing, and now with technology so readily available for young kids, there are new high-tech ways for them to cheat, and a solution for this, a handheld device used for detecting smartphone use, and it's from a company called Berkeley Veritronic Systems, BVS. And Scott Schober is a security expert and CEO of BVS, and he joins us here in the studio. Good to see you, Scott. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me on there.
So you have a lot of different devices that you brought with us. We'll get to them in one second. But how widespread a problem is this? Cheating, kids using cell phones in order to get ahead in school?
Well, it's really widespread now. It used to be that it would just be kids writing answers on the back of their palm or little notes or things like that. Now everybody's got a smartphone. And most kids are getting younger and younger, even in grade school, middle school, high school, and of course colleges. They've all got phones, most of them smartphones, and they're using them, and they're getting smarter using technology to find ways of cheating.
Now, I know just as a reporter that I've done stories and reported on events in school districts here in New York, but also it's pretty widespread down in Atlanta. There was a big scandal, and in some cases, it's some of the best respected schools in the country where these kids are facing a lot of competition. Of course, trying to get into colleges, and so when it comes to standardized testing, or when it comes to just regular testing, they'll do anything in order to get a good grade.
Yeah, and that's the point there. There's so much pressure now to get good scores on your SATs, to get into a good school. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's an Ivy League school, whatever, sometimes they'll go to the extremes and they'll find ways to cheat on the test, be it taking a picture. They may do a quick Google search for the answer, or even send something to their friend, a quick text. Help me out here. My mind's drawing a blank, and that's what they do.
Your company, BVS, has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So, but this is sort of a new line of products over the last couple of years to sort of focus in on this particular problem.
Yeah, we've always done stuff for building out the cell tower, selling to the carriers, AT&T and Verizon, test equipment. What we've done is reduce that down to a small scale, something that'll, like the PocketHound, to fit into your pocket so you can covertly find out if there's any mobile phone activity in a space such as a classroom.
Okay, so you brought let's just start with the PocketHound since you mentioned it.
Sure.
Tell us about this device. I mean, it's sort of the size of a cell phone, and this would be something that a teacher would have?
Yeah, exactly. A teacher, professor, anybody that's proctoring over an exam, they could use this to see if there's any cell phone activity. Typically during the beginning of an exam, a professor will say, hey, shut your phones off or put them away. And what they could do is sneak this into their pocket, and they could simply walk around, and what it'll do is it'll vibrate whenever there's cell phone activity. So if a student will transmit when they send a text, an email, Google search, it'll simply vibrate in the pocket, and then they could slowly make their way down the aisle and catch the unsuspecting student if they're cheating.
I see. So there's a little bit of detective work here.
Yeah,
exactly. It wouldn't tell the teacher exactly where the mobile device was being used, but...
It wouldn't, but you can infer it somewhat, because on top of here there's small lights, and as you get closer to the signal strength energy, you'll see a stronger signal strength. So you could simply, you feel a vibration, you glance down, and you could simply see it and say, I'm getting closer, and you can catch the kid in the act.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a metal detector that would start beeping more loudly as you got closer to...
Yeah, simple one-button operation. It's under $500, and any teacher or professor could use that.
What is it? This looks like a bottle of water, but it's actually something much, there's more to it.
Exactly. What it has is a secret cavity inside of there. And what we've done is, again, shrunk down the cell phone detector. And what it simply is here is a receiver, digital board, 9-volt battery, and vibrates when you get near cell phone activity. So now you can imagine a situation, be it in a conference room, boardroom, where you want to make sure that nobody's listening or bringing a cell phone in, and if they try to turn on a microphone, record a conversation, take a picture, you'll get a simple vibration. You can actually undo the top, drink water as normal too, so it's a complete covert solution, but you simply get a vibration in your hand if there's any cell phone activity.
I think I'll stick with my foxnews.com mug if you don't mind, but that's very cool. Let's look at this device right here. What is this?
I can even turn it on if you'd like. This is, again, a cell phone detector. This is used, you can couple it with a direction-finding antenna. We tend to sell this unit more to government facilities. If there's a secure SCIF where you can't bring in cell phones because there's confidential information. You could use this to root out and find cell phones and direction find, hunt them down, as it were say.
And what would be a practical use in sort of the regular everyday world?
But the most common use is actually in correctional facilities. Contraband cell phones is a huge problem in every state where they're smuggling phones in. And this is used to really hunt the phones down where inmates have smuggled them in, and they're using them for gang activity. They're using them for drugs, coordinating crimes, orchestrating things behind bars. So there's an opportunity there where that tool can hunt those out, and it's very effectively used throughout facilities.
And then what is this? This is called Transit Hound.
Yeah, that's
cell
a new
phone
one.
Detector. What's this one about?
What that one is, Rick, is all of us have heard of the problem of distracted driving. And that's getting worse and worse as traffic gets worse. But buses, train operators, anybody handling heavy machinery, the operators of it, that will detect if they're using a cell phone, and what it'll do is simply trigger a camera DVR, and that way you can catch them in the act of actually trying to text or make a phone call to their friend or girlfriend or whatever the case may be.
So this would be essential, and I guess you would probably go after various city transportation agencies.
Exactly.
Is that who your clients are for these kinds of things? Because again, from a news standpoint, I can't even tell you the number of stories that we've reported over the last 5 years or so with distracted bus drivers or train operators that result in accidents, and in the worst case scenario, people are killed or severely injured as a result of this.
Yeah, that's the sad problem, that the loss of life, it's not necessarily catching your teenage daughter that's talking on the phone or texting while driving, but more importantly, imagine you have several hundred passengers behind you. So their lives are at stake. All it takes is a second or two to take your eyes off the track or the wheel, and you could run a sign or run a light, whatever the case may be, and it may affect the lives of those passengers. So insurance companies, of course, because of the liabilities, are driving the technology to make it safer and safer for public transportation, and this is certainly a key tool that's been very effective there.
Of course, we know that technology is always changing, and people are always trying to sort of outsmart, whatever detective devices are out there. So, are you concerned, or how would you and your team react or respond if some application maker was to come out with something that could maybe foil some of the products that you've already developed?
A good point. The advantage we have as a company developing technology primarily for the carriers and service providers, we're always a year or two ahead of the technology before it's actually widespread and deployed. So as everybody hears the commercials, everything's migrating to 4G, the fourth generation.
Right.
We've been selling products for the past 2-3 years that are fourth generation. These tools here are already measuring the signals even though the networks are not fully deployed. So it's important for us to always be doing R&D in advance so we could have the latest and greatest and nobody could thwart our tools there or find workarounds.
In the minute we have left, Scott, back to the
please.
PocketHound for a minute. I know that you've got this in a number of different school districts around the country. Can you offer us any sort of anecdotal advice or evidence, rather, that this is actually working?
Sure. Well, a number of professors have been using it and have caught students in the act. Once that gets wind, peers talk to one another, and then throughout the whole school they say, "Oop, they're monitoring us, we better stop, we better be more careful." And so just then it naturally becomes a deterrent, works very effectively. And that's happening throughout different school districts and colleges and universities.